questions, and I'm reading them straight from my phone so I don't miss anybody's questions. Let's see. We've had some saucy interactions on my feed about questions, so let's jump right into it. The first thing I wanted to answer was, let's see, I'm scrolling. Joshua Moore asked, will you sign the discharge petition for the Major Richard Starr Act day one? For those of you that don't understand or don't know what the Major Richard Starr Act is an act that was co-sponsored by 79, I believe, bipartisan congressional members that says that if you are combat wounded, that you receive both your combat pay and your retirement. There was a loophole before that said that if you had not been in the military 20 years, that you could not receive your retirement concurrent with your disability. And this act solves that problem. So absolutely, I am always going to support our military and our injured vets. That is at the top of my list always. A couple of the other questions that I think are easy before we get into the other stuff is that Elizabeth Best said, I have one question. Why orange? I'm very soured on orange and gold, and I get that about the gold. I wear orange because I'm a gun violence prevention activist, and I have been for a really long time, and the color of gun violence prevention is orange. It is, and the reason it's orange is because it is the color that hunters wear in the woods when they say don't shoot. And so the color orange I wear all the time because even if I'm not talking about gun violence prevention, I want people to remember that every day 122 people are killed from gun violence that could be avoided. Let's see what else we have. Let me get right in here. So some of the questions that have been saucy or have been there's been a lot of conversation around is whether I would hold on, let me find it. If elected, will you file articles of impeachment against Trump? And I want everybody to be very clear on this issue. Absolutely, I will hold Trump accountable for his crimes. Today it came out that he is $2.2 billion richer since he's been in office in 25 alone. And that probably violates a ton of laws, emoluments clauses, and whatnot. So he will be held accountable. But to be clear, that's not the first thing I'm walking into DC and wanting to do. The first thing I want to do is make sure that we have voting rights and make sure that we get out of an illegal war. I need to make sure that children are being fed and that people have health care. Those are my top priorities. After that, we can hold criminals accountable. But right now, the American people are struggling to afford groceries, to afford medication, to afford the basic necessities to live life. And so that is my top priority, is to make sure that working families are able to live, to afford food, to feed their children, and to clothe and house themselves. That is my top priority. And of course, voting rights. If we have no voting rights, we have nothing. We have no say. So the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is top priority for me to make sure that all Americans have the ability to vote for me, to vote for my opponent, to vote for a Democratic Socialist, to vote for whoever you want, to make sure that your voice is heard in this country, because our vote is all we have. I want to be very clear about that, because let's see, who is it? out here with Josh and Ryan believes that that I don't answer questions poignantly. And I have to tell you that I would enjoy having a conversation with you one on one, and that you are always more than welcome to come into my office. You are always more than welcome to come to a coffee with the candidate and talk to me one on one about the issues that you care about, because I believe that's how you legislate. I believe you listen to constituents, and I believe you legislate based off of what they say, not about how I feel. Let's go on to another question. Okay, do you align yourself more with Democratic Socialist or establishment Democrats? Thank you for making those separations between Socialist Democrats, establishment Democrats, and then there are the rest of us, Democrats. I have to tell you that when I ran against Matt Gaetz, who was absolutely the worst representative that has ever darkened the halls of Congress, and then running against Jimmy Patronis in the special election. This was an R plus 37 district, and R plus 37 means that the Republicans outvoted us by 37%. And it's difficult for a Democrat to run in an area like this. But in the special election, I asked for help from the Democratic Party and did not get it. I didn't need their money. I wanted their surrogates. I wanted Raphael Warnock to come here and hold souls to the polls. And so very little attention was paid by the Democratic Party to the special election. I did not enjoy the fruits of the Democratic Party. That's not to say that the local Democratic Party, Escambia, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, and Walton, are very supportive, helped me in every possible way that they could. But the National Democratic Party is not going to waste their time on a Democrat that's running in an R plus 37 district. But I proved them wrong. I narrowed our margin by 22%, 22 points in the special election, and turned Escambia County blue. And if we can do that in Okaloosa County, then we can turn this district blue. Let me go to the next question. Or let me add to that. I wouldn't say I'm an establishment Democrat, and I wouldn't say I'm a socialist Democrat, but I do believe in social programs. I do believe in Medicare for all. As you all know, and you probably know well, that my husband, my 45-year-old husband, died of ALS 4.5 years ago. 6 months before him, my 9-year-old son died of a terminal brain tumor that only 120 kids get every year. And so I've navigated healthcare. I have also seen how healthcare can work for you. I've seen how healthcare does not work for you. When you have terminal illnesses that do not have a cure, you have to search high and low for treatments that are not readily available. And I believe everybody deserves the right to healthcare. Healthcare is not a privilege. It is a right of all Americans to enjoy healthcare and to enjoy preventative care. I believe in universal healthcare. I also believe in universal child care because in my circumstances, I'm an athletic trainer and I went to school. I got 2 degrees. I still didn't make enough money to live in Atlanta and pay for childcare at the same time. So when we moved here, it was cheaper, and we were able for me not to work and be a full-time caregiver to my child. But when we lived in Atlanta, we both had to work and pay childcare, but everything that I was working for was going to childcare. And that is true of so many mothers going to work and just taking your paycheck and handing it over to the people that take care of your child. And then there's nothing left to feed your child or give your child health care. And that's primarily why we moved from Atlanta to Northwest Florida, is because we could afford to live differently here than we could in downtown Atlanta. And I was able to stay home with my child instead of paying somebody else to stay home with my child. But that is not true of the majority of Americans, American mothers who work and need childcare. Childcare should be free, and it should be provided by the federal government, and I will make sure that that happens. I will make sure that we work toward a government that has health care for everyone, childcare for everyone. And another thing that I want to mention is climate. Climate is something that we're not paying attention to. The insurance companies are paying attention to. We are not paying attention to it. The federal government has taken away all resources from climate. Florida has gone out of its way to take it out of all of their documents, and it's kind of crazy how that happens. And the insurance companies are hiring the most expensive climate scientists there are to tell you that the big one's coming, and we're not doing anything to prevent it or to stop it. Um, and we have to invest in our climate change. Now, I think I answered this question online, but if elected, do you have plans to help restore funding to PBS and NPR? So in our district, our college, Northwest Florida, University of Northwest Florida, had a PBS subsidiary that was attached to the college. The college tried or has decided to defund it. And so we need to bring, and that means all the PBS programming is gone. PBS and NPR programming is completely gone. And now I think the channel is showing recordings of Little House on the Prairie, uh, other things that nobody cares about, which I apologize if you're a Little House on the Prairie fan, Michaela, I apologize. But it's no longer showing programming that helps our children learn, no longer showing programming that gives us unbiased news. And so the funding needs to come back, but that is a state. The problem that has started was with the state that has put a president in that seat who is against PBS and NPR. It is a federal issue to bring the funding back. And so, as your congresswoman, I commit to making sure that PBS and NPR are funded. Let's see. Chris Malcolm. Hello, Chris Malcolm. What are your thoughts on the Democratic Socialists winning more in the primary elections? And what are your top three priorities? I think that the Democratic Socialists winning are fantastic. I think that Mandami is a true leader. I believe that that their policies are resonating with the general electorate. I believe that Democrats have had enough of the status quo and that are moving on. I think the crux of the issue is where do socialist policies work and where do they not work? Who's going to buy in and who's not going to buy in? I would love to see people understand what Medicare for all is. And this is how I explain it. When you go to the doctor's office and say, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield and you have United Healthcare, they negotiate what a price is for, say, if we both go to physical therapy and you get an ice bag and Blue Cross Blue Shield pays $30 for an ice bag and United Healthcare pays $120 for an ice bag. What Medicare for all does is makes It's a one pay scale. So when you go to the doctor, you know exactly what you're going to pay when you come out. Our healthcare system is not transparent. It doesn't it doesn't explain to you when and why you're going to pay what. They tell you when you sign up for your health care, this is your deductible and this is what it's for, and this is what you're going to owe when you go to the doctor. But they never, ever tell you what you're going to owe. Say you're going in for a colonoscopy. They don't tell you what you're going to owe when you're coming out. You wouldn't do that to your car. And I believe we should do that with our health care. I believe that we should have one pay scale for everything under the sun. For instance, for Medicare, Medicare has one pay scale, and I believe if it's good enough for our elderly, it's good enough for us, and it will make sure that every American receives care. It will make sure that every American receives preventative care. A lot of the issues with the diseases that we have in the United States of America are because we don't invest in preventative care. And I believe that's a core part of what we need to do. And that's why I am all in on Medicare for all. Let's see what else I have. Okay, so Scott Davis asked, my questions are, there's talk of bringing in an Australian shipbuilder to our port downtown, and I assume he means Pensacola. I'm all for creating good paying jobs. That said, but just by its nature, it's noisy, dirty, air pollution creating industry. I thought we were going to have race boat sailing or sailboat racing, excuse me, which needs a clean bay and sky. Have you had time to research this? I asked somebody about this today. Actually, I asked one of the mayoral candidates about it. And what I found out was exactly what you said. Yes, an Australian shipbuilder is looking to come here. And has there been um, any movement on exploring what they could do to our environment? There has not been. So I would say I'm going to stay vigilant, staying on top of this question, and I know our mayoral candidates will stay on top of this question. We have three fantastic mayoral candidates who are running under the Democratic ticket. I would suggest that everybody look into those people. And while we're talking about other candidates, let's talk about Katie Mitchell's question, which were mostly state questions, but I'm going to try to answer the majority of them under the lens of a federal lens. So, what can be done to restore the reproductive rights of women in our state? I'll start with that. So, in our state, what you can do is elect people so that we don't have a supermajority in the Florida legislature, because it has been left up to the states since the Dobbs decision. Federally, what we can do, there are a couple options. Congress can get together, write a bill. There is a bill currently in front of Congress that codifies the ability for women to make their own decision about whether to have an abortion or not. That is the most simple solution there is to this problem. The other solutions are a constitution convention. There's also an overturning of the Dobbs decision, but under the Supreme Court, that's next to impossible that that's going to happen. So the most clear way is through Congress, through a working Congress that shows up, because currently our congressmen and women have only worked 91 days this year. Let's see, what's out? What else do we have? Out here with Josh and Ryan say, will you actually answer the questions we're posting here? I'm gonna try to. And let's see, how do you feel about repealing property tax? DeSantis says the state has money to fill in where revenue losses at the local level. I'm worried that he would put stipulations on giving out money like the like the Bible must be read in public school in the area, certain things must be banned, etc. I share your concerns, but repealing the property tax is something that's not feasible. So our property tax money, the first thing that will go is public education. And I think I've talked about public education. I may have talked about it last week, but I talk about it a lot. Only 10% of funding comes from the federal government. The other 90% comes from the state. And so everyone has noticed what has happened with our public education system. Money continues to be taken away through the voucher program, and that money is not being given back to our schools. We cannot afford to take one more dime out of public school systems because we have to educate our children. Not one more dime can be removed from public education. And so I do not support the property tax proposal. I would like to see property taxes removed for people over 70. I would like to see property taxes removed. I think veterans do not pay property taxes, or disabled veterans. I think there are reasonable solutions that some people can get relief from property taxes, but our real problem is property insurance. Let's see. Where are my other questions? What did I miss? Okay. PBS. Oh, my top 3 priorities, sorry. Chris Malcolm, sorry. My top 3 priorities, are number 1, affordability. We are struggling with buying groceries, the cost of living, rent, mortgage. Medication. And then the second thing that I'm more concerned about is health insurance and homeowners insurance. The third thing is taking care of our veterans with a full service VA hospital. Because as you all know, our federal government has doged the VA and recently fired, over 1,000 doctors and over 3,000 nurses. And our particular VA clinic here does a really good job. We just don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough services. So everything is farmed out to civilian healthcare. And when it is farmed out to civilian healthcare, everybody's wait times go up. And with wait times, you have care denied. Because if you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks, if you have to wait 6 weeks to see somebody about an urgent issue, then that is care denied. We des we have to provide care for our vets. We promised we would when they went and they defended our homeland, and that is the very least we can do. I believe that we should have a full service VA hospital that has a surgical clinic, that has an emergency room, that has PT, that has a multidisciplinary ALS clinic. Because if you're in the military, you are 14 times more likely to get ALS than a civilian. So those are issues that are very close to me. Let's see, Michaela, did I forget any questions? Let's see, I am going to see what else I can answer. Okay, would you sign the petition? Okay. What is being done to protect our city, county, farms, and our people from rising temperature due to climate change? I have to tell you, nothing is being done. Our state is not working on climate change, as well as our federal government is not working on climate change. We need to address the issues. We need to go back to the Biden era and put back in all of the all of the protections that we had during the Biden era for our climate. I'm sorry, I'm trying to navigate different tabs. We can uphold separation of church and state in our public schools and bring banned books back. Absolutely, I am a firm believer in the separation of church and state. I believe that when you step in the door of your job in Congress, you don't take your church beliefs with you. You take your moral belief and your moral compass with you to make laws for the people. I believe that there are there's so many different religions, and I respect each and every one to be able to be practiced, but I also believe that you have to leave that at the door before you legislate. Let's see. Um, will corrupt politicians like DeSantis and Rick Scott ever be held accountable? I would I would love to see Rick Scott and DeSantis be held accountable. I believe that DeSantis has ambitions toward the White House, and all we can do is shake our finger at him and tell him no, like we did the last time he wore those white boots. And let's see what from Joshua. Um, did that. How do we undo all the things that this administration has done? Y'all, I'm going to be dead honest with you. How do we undo all the things that this administration has done? It's going to take 10, 20 years to do that. The Dobbs decision alone, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get past. It's going to take years for us to dig in. It's going to take Congress not only the time to make laws to solve these problems, but to also figure out how we got in the position that we're in now. How did we get to the point in our administration or in our political discourse that we allowed someone like a Donald Trump to come in and speak for us all? How not only did we elect him once, but we elected him twice. And what are the reasons? Why did people elect him? The second time around, I believe people elected him because they thought that their wallets would get better. This time around, I believe that people are starting to see through what has happened with this administration and how he's enriched himself while the rest of us eat cake. And that is what we have to solve. We have to figure out how this happened. How did it happen and how can we prevent it in the future? And we need to make laws to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But let me tell you that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. We all have a part to play. We all have a part to play in making our country functional. We make our democracy work, but it's because we all buy in. And the only way to do that is to elect good, honest people to office. Good, honest people that genuinely care about representing other people, and not for power, not for money, not for pride. I believe in term limits. I believe you shouldn't die in a congressional seat. You shouldn't die sitting in the Senate. I believe that if the United States president has term limits, so should Congress. because the best ideas come from fresh faces. And that is what I rely on when I go out and talk to people in the community. These these ideas and things that we could pass don't come from me. They come from you. So keep talking to me. Keep sending me questions. And hold on, let me look. And out here with Josh and Ryan, when I have a question about fishing, I'll come to you. So thanks everybody for sticking around. It is time for USA Soccer. So please turn your TV on, and this is the one time that we can all get together and be on the same team. So yes, I care about going and kicking a ball. Josh and Ryan. Thanks, everybody.